It's been a while since the E3 2019 gameplay reveal, and of course a lot in that video was subject to change with it being so early in Dying Light 2's development. There's also a possibility that what was shown was changed in a few ways. I mean, it's not entirely out of the realm of reason. Techland went out of their way to really highlight the game's new mechanics, enemies, and zones, but I still thought this theory was worth exploring. Now, full transparency, this theory was something I came across over on Reddit by the user Roktrum. It really got my gears turning, so maybe go show the original post some love, as it's always nice to keep the talk around Dying Light 2 going leading up to its release. The theory touches on the very many nuances of the game's narrative based off your choices as Aiden and the type of experience you'll get running around the city of Villedor, and ultimately the one of 5 possible endings this game has, in which you'll get based off of your individual choices. But in case you forgot or haven't seen the trailer or whatever, just to bring everyone up to speed, in that trailer we watched them play out the quest called Water for the City. The premise is a city is in desperate need for water, and the NPC known as Frank, Aiden's mentor and friend, manages to organize a meeting between the Peacekeepers and the Renegades to hopefully broker some kind of deal. In the trailer, the meeting with the Renegades ambassadors goes south, Frank gets shot, and instead of staying by his side, the player chases after the van, eventually getting inside the Renegades island, where we hear Frank has succumbed to his wounds. We're also blatantly shown that while the Renegades are referred to as butchers, we see full blossoming communities with women and children playing. But after this, the player then runs into the Colonel, who, although initially confused at the news of where Frank was and how he was shot allegedly by one of the Colonel's men, they end up breaking out into a fight after Aiden's stubbornness to hear out the Colonel and continue his quest of turning on the city's water pumps. The trailer ends with the narrator telling us the Colonel was right. There was a plot against him that only he knew, and while the Renegades were referred to as butchers, in his plea, the Colonel turned around and referred to Matt, this guy, the guy who allegedly saw Frank get shot by the Colonel's Renegades, and the Peacekeepers as his butchers. In hindsight, this is a very interesting look at the Renegades because they are the bad guys, and this is straight out of the developers' mouths.
Of course, aside from the Peacekeepers and the survivors, there are other groups in the city. The next important one is the Renegades, and they are basically the bad guys. So you will face them and you will have to make some decisions how you want to deal with them.
Now, whether that's just based off the world's lore and what Aiden hears from the 2 other factions, which are the Peacekeepers and Survivors, and the devs are just saying they're the bad guys based off that and because they're made out of ex-prisoners, or they are really the main human faction that opposes Aiden, the main story is really all yet to really be seen. But I'd have to guess the fact that you can only align with the Survivors or the Peacekeepers in the city alignment system has to indicate that they are, at least in terms of world presence, limited to a degree, or at some point maybe in the main narrative takes a sideline. Or, it could very well be a thing that they're a massive faction that really doesn't provide much room to negotiate in terms of the city of alignment system. But the trailer shows us some discrepancies. Which of these factions are using Aiden as a pawn to squash the other and dominate the city? The devs have really been driving home the decisions made by us have a massive impact on the world, the story, and on Aiden. He can be cold and calculating with no loyalty, being fully self-serving, or he can be the complete opposite. It's really up to us. The death of Frank can be up to the player on whether they choose to give a shit or not, and whether they want to hear the Colonel out. And I bring that up because the gameplay shown to us seems to really drive home Aiden's quest for vengeance, with Matt's encouragement of killing the Colonel to make him pay. But what about this theory? What if Matt is actually the bad guy? He claims the Renegade shot Frank, which the shot actually sounds like it's from a distance.
Plan B?
I'll improvise.
What if he improvises?
It'll work out.
You so sure about that?
Frank!
Fuck! Knew it!
He then hounds Aiden on keeping up with the van, passionately denies Aiden's idea of just talking to the Colonel after he sees the communities they have, and uses the death of Frank as a driving factor to kill him.
Hey.
I'm on the island. What's with the butcher thing? All I see is regular people. Huh. I should talk to the Colonel.
The time for talk is over. Frank's dead.
He then tells him not to listen to the Colonel, pulls the death of Frank once more, and tells him to turn on the pumps, which we see allows the area around the camp to be drained, and give the Peacekeepers an opportunity to launch an assault, which they promptly do, signaling that this had to be a plan in the making. If the Colonel was aware of some plot against him and Frank was able to negotiate at least a meeting with this leader of the butchers, that'd signal Frank was a reasonable guy, and if left alive, potentially wouldn't allow Matt and the Peacekeepers an opportunity to assault the Renegades base. It could have gone the other way around, where maybe maybe the Colonel could trust him, and the two of them, with Aiden's help, uncover some type of plot where those around the Colonel were secretly either a double agent for the Peacekeepers, or some kind of deal was made where, with the help of the Peacekeepers, someone else in the Colonel's inner circle would become the next to rule the Renegades and stay out of the Peacekeepers' way in exchange for their help to dethrone the Colonel. I mean, there's really no telling that something like this could very well turn out to be true if you choose to stay with Frank and actually get him a doctor. You know, for all we know, Matt left Frank to find his own doctor, eventually succumbing to his wounds, while Matt went off and organized the raid we see on the water station. With all the decisions and nuances, they could be a few different plot twists around the corner regardless of what paths we all choose. I mean, I doubt anyone would really get a boring, straightforward, to the point narrative. We have to make some wild choice at some point to give us some type of in-depth plot twist, wouldn't you think? Maybe if you stay with Frank, and a future meeting with the Colonel is arranged, a settlement is drawn up where the Renegades may become a little more friendly towards the survivors, and the two of them form some type of mutual alliance against the Peacekeepers, who've shown they'd stop at nothing to deal with any resistance to their rule. With the Colonel appearing to be rational and really fearing for the women and children of his community whose safety could no longer be fully guaranteed with the natural water barrier gone, he's got to keep his community before any outsiders, sure, but showing this compassionate side, it'd be reasonable for him to drum up something favorable for the survivors, so long as they cut any type of ties with the Peacekeepers who set up the Renegades and put Aiden in a position where all-out war would erupt between these two factions. I'm sure when the full game comes out, there's got to be some type of way where we can keep everything in balance, and it's a constant power struggle between, sure, these three factions, but with certain decisions you can teeter it where it stays kind of the status quo, no one's fully at war, there's no real bloodshed between these three main factions, or it could be potentially the other way around where, yeah, you can initiate a full-on war or play each one of these factions to your own personal benefit at the detriment of these regular people, whether they be Peacekeepers trying to kill infected and get all the humans that are remaining in line, or the survivors that are just trying to live and coexist with this new world that's dominated by the infected. I mean, this game seems to have a lot of amazing potential, but just enough ambiguity surrounding it that, you know, there could be a lot of room for speculation. But let me know what you guys think about this theory. Do you think there's some credence to it? Do you think I'm kind of talking out of my ass, which a lot of the time, you know, let's be honest, I really do? Let's talk. I want to hear from you guys. And then, like always, in case you guys haven't joined yet, I have a Discord with over 2,000 members, whether if you want to talk a Dying Light 2, Halo, Doom, Assassin's Creed, Borderlands, I mean, you name it. It's just a like-minded place where you can come, relax, and just talk to people about video games. But thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cynic, and until next time, we'll see you all later.